Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. It's the worst desert locust outbreak in decades for many countries in East Africa. City-sized locust swarms are attacking crops and threatening the food supply for millions of people. As the situation continues to deteriorate, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations warns about the need to act now to avoid a full-blown catastrophe. One of the persons in charge of tackling this crisis is my guest today, Dominique Burgeon, Director of the Emergencies and Rehabilitation Division at FAO. He's joining us from the organization's headquarters in Rome. Dominique Burgeon, thank you for being with us. I'd like to start by summarizing the current situation. To date, the locusts have spread to a total of 8 African countries.
Yes, indeed, we are extremely concerned with the evolution of the desert locust upsurge we are facing in East Africa. Actually, the situation, we had some locust population that were in Ethiopia and Somalia towards October last year. Normally, at that time of the year, they sort of auto-regulate themselves. But we had a massive cyclone that hit the region, Cyclone Pawam, on 7th of December, that brought huge quantities of water, therefore creating ideal conditions for locusts to multiply. And since end of December, 28th of December, actually there has been swarms and swarms, wakes of swarms that have invaded basically Kenya, Ethiopia, Somalia, and that have now even reached Uganda, Tanzania, and even earlier this week there was a sort of a rapid incursion of locust swarms into South Sudan. So indeed, this is a situation that is evolving very quickly with new countries being regularly hit.
You recently traveled yourself to Kenya and Somalia. What assessments did you make on the ground?
Yeah, indeed. A couple of weeks I was in Kenya and then in Somalia 10 days ago. And I think what is really impressive is the density of locusts that you can see. In Kenya, I could see a lot of swarms. And when I'm talking about the density, I think you have to know that 1 square kilometer of locusts can include as many as between 35 and 80 million of locusts. That is really high density. And when 1 square kilometer is very small swarm. A couple of weeks ago in Kenya, they actually spotted a 60 by 40 kilometer swarm, 2,400 square kilometers with billions and billions of locusts flying in very dense swarms. On the contrary, in Somalia, when I was there, they were not yet, those I saw were not yet flying. They were at an early stage of their development, what we call upper bands. And it's really as if a carpet is moving on the ground. Again, the density, and this is, I must say, extremely scary for us visiting, but first and foremost for the population that are at risk of these swarms.
And how are farmers and the population reacting? How do they feel?
Well, yeah, of course, farmers are very worried by the situation, and I think it's important to realize that in that part of the world you have farmers that are cropping their field, but you have also many people, actually about 50% of the population of the region depend on pastoralism for their livelihood. It means they depend on animals, and therefore they depend on pasture, and the pasture and the crops and the trees are equally affected by the swarm, by the locust. I think it's important to realize that a locust eats about its weight per day. So when you think of the locust swarm, I was talking about 2,400 square kilometers, it's eating as much as 80 million people per day. So it can be really devastating. It can have a big impact that can be at times localized or spread over bigger distance. But if you are a farmer and you see a swarm of locusts landing in your field or landing on your pasture, of course, you are extremely scared and you risk losing everything, basically.
What about the governments? Do they have the means to face this threat?
I think what you have to realize is that this is a very exceptional event. As a matter of fact, when it comes to Kenya they haven't seen such an event in 70 years. When it comes to Somalia and Ethiopia, it's 25 years. So it means the governments are doing their very best to support their population and to control the invasion of locusts, but their capacity, of course, are completely overwhelmed. And this is where organizations such as the Food and Agriculture Organization have a role to play in augmenting the capacities of these governments, providing them with expertise, providing them with equipment, so that they are indeed better prepared to control the situation.
That leads to my next question. How can you control the locust population? Is a total eradication of the migratory pest possible?
No, we are not talking of eradication. Locusts are dangerous when they become gregarious. It means when they indeed form these swarms. When they are solitary, they are an insect among many, and they even have a role to play in the ecosystem. So it's a matter of avoiding these big swarms to form, and for that, indeed, we need to control. And when they reach that stage of that sort of scale of invasion, then we have, ground control operations, spraying when it comes to those locusts that are, forming the carpets I was talking about in the previous question, or using aerial spraying of pesticides, chemical pesticides, or biopesticides when it comes to the locust swarms. And this is unfortunately the only solution to sort of reduce the pressure of these locust swarms.
This is not the first time the Greater Horn of Africa has seen locust upsurges approach this scale, but the current situation is the largest in decades, as you mentioned. Why is this one different from the past ones, and is it linked to climate change?
Well, I think if you look at comparable situation, the last time we had such a large upsurge in the world was in West Africa. It was between 2003 and 2005. It took about 2 to 3 years and $570 million of investment to control the situation. Now, the previous one was in 1987. Now we have this situation here in the Horn of Africa that is indeed very exceptional. And, when you are talking of climate change, climate change, classically we think on the climate change in terms of, sea level rise, increase of temperature. But one of the clear manifestations of climate change is the increase in the frequency and intensity of climate extremes. In this particular case, what we have seen is that we have seen at least 3 cyclones, 2 on the Arabian Peninsula and 1 on Eastern Africa, and 1 on Eastern Africa that have indeed brought very good moisture, very big quantity of humidity that have created ideal conditions for the locusts to breed. So, even if we cannot completely relate the extreme events to climate change, we know that one of the manifestations of climate change is extreme weather events. In this case, we have some. So this might be the new normal, and our role, therefore, will be to make sure that the countries are better prepared to deal with these situations.
You have issued many statements to warn the international community that immediate action is required to prevent a humanitarian catastrophe. Why is it so important to act now?
Indeed, action needs to take place now. We are in between 2 seasons. I think this is the key thing we have to keep in mind, is that the locust invasion started at the end of the previous season. Therefore, the impact on crop and pasture was relatively limited. But now we are in between 2 seasons. This is now that we need to control the locust population. Otherwise, they will multiply big time by up to a factor of 400 to 500 by June. And then what will happen is that there will be a huge quantity of locusts when the next planting season will start as of March, April. If the locusts are still there in big numbers when the next season starts, this is where you will see a massive impact on food production and therefore an impact on the food security of the population. Therefore, control operations need to take place now, and in the meantime, we need to support the livelihoods of those communities that have already been affected.
Thank you, Dominique Burgeon, for being with us on France 24, and thank you for watching. It's the end of this interview, but do stay with us for more news on France 24.
France 24, 4 news channels in 4 languages, 430 journalists, 35 nationalities, 160 bureaus around the world, a global reach. 385 million households in over 180 countries can watch France 24. 80 million viewers watch the channel every week, and the numbers are constantly growing, with audience multiplied by 2 in 5 years. France 24 Online is also forging ahead. Over 15.5 million visits a month on France24.com. With 59.8 million videos viewed online, France 24 is a leader on YouTube, while our 38.2 million Facebook and Twitter followers make us France's #1 channel on social media. To our constantly growing community of viewers, thank you.